Hey everyone, Alex De Ocampo here from the Filipino Voter Empowerment Project and the Mass Voter Coalition. Thanks for joining us today. Today we're going to have a great group of guests and we're going to talk about some very important topics on Asian Americans and the impact when it comes to voting, civic engagement, and let me introduce you to some of our amazing guests today. I'm going to toot everyone's horn here a bit and kind of give you some background on some of these amazing guests. Christina Oriel, she is one of the youngest editors of an Asian American publication in the nation. And then we have filmmaker and director John Agustavo, who's actually one of the very few that's part of the Directors Guild of America, that's PhilAm.
So John, you've built your career doing a lot of commercials and music videos that have a social message. Can you talk about using your platform to, push these different issues that we're facing in America today?
It's necessary for me to use my platform and my creative ability to have something to say that's more than just beneficial to my own career. And I think even all the way back to when I was in high school, doing like MLK Day things and things for like PhilAm things and all that, it led up to my professional career where I've always wanted my work to have a social relevance. I think that's important not just as a person, but as a creator to be able to affect your world, and whether that's just one person or if you have a bigger platform, say, like the Same Love thing you're talking about, like that affects a lot more people. But I think it's just important to make your work have an ability to touch and influence people to make a change in their lives.
So John, I'm a fan of your work. The one that I truly love was the Macklemore music video that you co-directed. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
That video, it was kind of the start of my career, and it was really important to do something on the back of doing this thrift shop thing where I felt like it was like a really just like fun exercise and directing, like super fun. It was fun, and it was important to me to take on a project when there was other directors in Seattle who didn't want to do it because they didn't want to associate their name with such a, at the time, polarizing subject. And for me, being who I am, I guess, I was like, I wouldn't be walking the walk if I didn't take on this project. So in doing so, it was nice because we wanted to make something to hopefully inspire people, because there was a vote about gay marriage coming up in Washington. And so we wanted to make this video as fast as we could and tell, a love story that relative, like if it's man, woman, man, woman, that just love is love type of thing. And so it was important to tell a story that can be relatable to anyone. It just happened to be two men on screen.
Hey everyone, we're actually honored to have Los Angeles City Councilman David Ryu. He is the first Korean American to be elected in the Los Angeles City Council, and he is also the second Asian American ever to be elected in the Los Angeles City Council. I just want to ask you this question. How was it when you ran the first time?
It is shocking that in the city of Los Angeles, with such a high Asian American population, to say that I'm the first Korean American and the second Asian ever in the entire city, in the entire history of the city of Los Angeles to get elected is a little shocking. But I never thought I would run for city council. It was more because I never thought any Asian American could win. But it was because of the groundbreaking efforts of people like yourself.
For Asian Americans, I think we tend to sort of not cause big waves, right? I think in lots of our different communities, we start, our parents are saying, be cautious, don't be too out there because, it may be dangerous or difficult, and we don't want that, right? And you were able to do that. And
it was difficult, especially running for office, but growing up, we live in especially as immigrants and as Asian American culture is mainly based in some sort of Confucianism lifestyle where, be humble, be quiet, respect your elders, don't act out. But in America, we're taught in schools to be independent, to be free thinkers, to speak out, which was a dichotomy that I had struggled with, and I know all of us did.
In our community, in our culture, there's sort of a standard of what we were going to do when we grow up, right?
Yeah.
And for you, I was wondering what your parents thought when you're like, Mom, Dad, I'm going to be running for public office.
Later on in life, when I decided to run for office, it was actually, they still didn't understand what it was, but they said, I guess it's a step up.
So, John, yeah, as you progressed in your career and you fell into this field, or you fell into it, or you fell in love with it.
But the problem for me was the things I wanted to do, there was no one like me doing it. So I had no one to, and like my little baby violin that I like play all the time is like, it does make you feel, when there's no representation of you, it makes it feel like it's not possible for you.
Do you feel a lot of pressure because we were talking earlier, there's only a few Filipino Americans in the Directors Guild of America. Like probably we could count them with my fingers, right?
Right.
And I think, representation matters. And do you feel when you go on to set and you're directing commercials or films, like you have this sort of standard in your head, or do you feel like a little like, what am I doing? And like, oh, wow, the pressure's on.
Yeah, it's interesting because like in the process of a film I'm doing now, the writer that I'm working with did almost like an interview of my life, and he goes, dude, there's a lot of like existential questions you're having about your masculinity and all these things that are related to you being Asian American. And I think it's a thing where, like I said, it's very internal.
So for the past few months, we've seen people take to the streets calling for racial and social justice. Where do you see Asian Americans fitting into this conversation, especially since with the onset of COVID-19, we've been hearing about hate crimes and just different acts of discrimination against our community?
Yeah, I'm so proud of my Asian American brothers and sisters because we were in the front lines with them. And this is very important with Black Lives Matters movement. And back in the Civil Rights era, Asian Americans were also right there with our African American brothers and sisters. I mean, with Cesar Chavez, Filipino Americans were right there with them as well. Yes, we are often the forgotten minority. Yes, we have lesser in numbers, but we are there because we are together, because as minorities, we all go through the same struggle.
Black Lives Matter because it should show the best characteristics of what we are supposed to be as Americans. That's what I believe. It's like the good version of what we are promised by coming here, or being born here, is supporting Black Lives Matter.
And if I could add to that about your model minority, and that's what the model minority myth is, what perpetuates and pits communities against each other.
So why is it so important for Asian Americans to vote in this upcoming election?
Well, exactly what we've just been talking about. Our voices matter. All voices matter. Every vote counts. And as a matter of fact, Asian Americans are the largest growing population and the largest voting bloc population. And in many of these swing states, if Asian Americans just turn out and voted, we could turn the tide.
Based off my own experiences, but I think by us as Asian Americans injecting ourselves more so into these conversations, it makes us more included in what this country is about, again, instead of always being this outlier that's outside of the black, white, sometimes Latino narrative.
I remember my grandmother telling me, David, don't make waves. Be quiet. Just listen, because we are a guest in this country. So if you do something wrong, we might get deported. And for the longest time, I thought that was true. Then when I got older, got my citizenship, went to college and started learning about our history, I said, no, this is my country.
With the ongoing coronavirus pandemic, we've had to shift a lot of our day-to-day life, especially when it comes to elections. Can you talk about how your campaign and your office has been reaching out to voters this time around and the voting options that we have to keep each other safe this November?
Yeah, in a post-COVID world, campaigning has become a lot more difficult. And being on the ballot, the best thing to reach out to voters is knocking on their door, shaking their hand, saying hello, and introducing yourself. But obviously we can't do any of that. So we have to rely on new technologies, a lot of phone banking, a lot of texting, a lot of social media, mail. So it's not only had elections become more expensive, but a lot more harder to reach out to folks.
Go to iwillalways-vote.com. We thank you, and stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you, everyone.